All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. No one thought this was going to happen, but it is. It's sure to be chaotic discussion regarding Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Andrew, calm down. It's okay. And it's not Pete's fault this time, so don't worry.
A little
I
bit.
mean, it sort of was.
Listen, we gotta keep the testosterone here as much as we can. We don't want to exclude him and make him leave. So I'll take the blame. Anyways, yes. So Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, this huge ass book. I just read it, finished it probably a couple weeks ago. It was fantastic. Leanna and Hillary, not so recent, but we'll see what happens with this discussion. Pete has reread it twice. No, once.
So this was the second time reading it.
How long ago was the first time?
A year, probably like two years ago. I think I read it right out of college, or maybe in college.
Both your first and second reads are more recent.
So like 2019. I think that's when I read it, was in 2019.
It might have been earlier than that.
I read it in like 2013.
So you're the wisest among us.
I'm just the original fan. I'm a trendsetter. You guys are just copying me.
Exactly. That's it.
All right. Well, going back though, I'm sure you already know all of these people, but I'm gonna let them introduce themselves and their channels and what they read and all that good stuff. So directions.
Oh, me first? My name is Leanna. My channel name is Leanna's Library. I am known for my rants, even though if you look at my channel, I don't post very many rants. It's not my fault that that's all you guys watch. So I'm just saying. That being said, I do often dislike books, but this is one of those rare books that I quite enjoyed. So I'm here to gush, not rant. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise instead of.
Oh, okay. That's me. Okay. Hi, I'm Hillary from the channel Bookborn, and I talk about adult high fantasy and sometimes reviews, but mostly just video essays on adult fantasy stuff. But I will say Leanna and I have bonded over our general dislike of a lot of books now. So
Hillary, you're undoing all of my great work.
I also dislike a lot of books just in general, but again, like Leanna, I don't post those to my channel very often. I post the stuff I like. But yeah, I can vouch for Leanna that she also doesn't like books. But we both liked this, so that's all that matters.
That means it's good. It's official.
Hi, I'm Ponderings of Pete. I am just do videos, normal booktube videos. I don't actually do anything that different, in my opinion. But that's a work in progress. I do fantasy, sci-fi, some nonfiction, some weird books sometimes, every once in a while.
Infinite Jest is the one.
Yes,
you're working
Infinite
on right
Jest.
now?
That's the one I'm working on right now, and it's a trip.
And Pete likes books. That's why you should go to Pete's channel, because
I like books. I tend to be on the liking book spectrum of things. It's hard.
So
for
does
me
it mean anything that he liked this book? Because he likes everything.
I mean,
I'll let him know, Andrew.
Yeah, it's not an official me video or live stream without the dog making an appearance. So, anywho, oh, there you go. Yes, you heard me talking about
It's Max.
Good job, buddy. He's gonna start squeaking on the toy. Sorry, guys. Yeah. So, like, how would you pitch this book to anyone that's never read it before? Like, how would you try and convince someone to read this?
Well, I wouldn't try to convince someone, because I feel like if you had to be talked into it, you would hate it. You have to be excited about the weirdness that you're going to describe as being this book, because if they're not already excited about it, as soon as they start, they're going to be like, what? No, I'm not doing this for 1,000 pages.
Well, I was going to say, I actually watched the first episode of the adaptation, not knowing it was really a book. And then I watched it and it clearly said based on, right when you started. And I was like, oh, so we watched one. I was like, I'm super fascinated by this. So then I stopped watching and went to read it. So that's one way you can pitch someone, is like, just go watch the first episode, see if you're interested in what kind of thing this is, and then go
and
read
it
the
is
book.
a pretty loyal adaptation.
Yeah, I actually never went back and finished it, which is crazy because I actually really liked the first few episodes.
Well, I think the guy that plays Jonathan Strange is like an uber fan of the book. Like he was so jazzed to play Jonathan Strange. He like had a copy of the book all fully tabbed and was just like the like expert on set.
Yeah,
So
and you
the
can
Jonathan
tell.
Strange equivalent of Henry Cavill with The Witcher.
Or Ben Barnes on Shadow and Bone.
Ben Barnes. Anyway.
He loves the books. He really does.
So yeah, that's interesting what someone said though. I would say also, because they said they loved it from an alternative Victorian history perspective. I would say if people like historical fiction, this is the kind of book that you would pitch to them, because I really do think it's fantasy, but it's also not. Does anyone else feel that way?
It's not Victorian because it's during the Napoleonic War. And so like I feel like if you are interested in the Napoleonic War era and specifically some war aspects, but also like what is it called? The
Regency?
Or just like the drawing room etiquette, that kind of like social politics as well. And that all appeals to you and you enjoy it being detailed and verbose, and then toss in a bit of magic, then you'll probably like it.
Yeah, I think what I always tell people is like, you have to be okay with a slow burn. So you have to be okay with points being slow, but it's so worth it in the end, because one of my favorite parts about this book I always tell people is like the character development, the arcs that characters go through are just so good, and you're with the characters for so long that you feel it on such a level. Like there's some sort of length of time you need to be with characters sometimes to really understand what's happening, and this book I think does that really well.
I also think that you would have to that in order to like this book, you have to like being immersed in a world. Just because like with the footnotes and the random side stories and all this other jazz, like you really do get immersed in the world. Not as much immersed into like fairy as I would have liked. Like I wanted more stuff in fairy, but like you have like Susanna Clarke did a really good job of doing an alternative history, but telling you what's different. So if you're interested in learning about the history of it, like that's why I think you get y'all right with the historical fiction aspect of it. It really kind of pushed the history side of the historical fiction.
Yeah, well, I feel like a lot of historical type fantasy will just kind of just add some magic, but it won't really go into like the history of the world would have to be different. The history of the monarchy would have to be different. The history of everything, of even like your social norms and etiquette. And if you want us to have arrived at basically the Napoleonic War, but also your whole history is different, then like she goes through the trouble of like actually telling you how that history is different. And here's the way that like the history of magic itself is a thing in this world that people study, that to be a magician is to study the history of magic. You don't actually do magic because like that's considered a little uncouth, but that's a part of it, and that's what makes it feel so much more real and so much more lived in. The fact that it's not just a sense of like historical fiction, but with like a sprinkling of like a magical kind of window dressing. No, it's like a fully reimagined history for the world and England with magic from the very beginning.
And that's what I always tell people is like, it's probably the only book I would say that it's the realest book I've ever read that's a fantasy. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I read the book and it felt true. Like you read this and you're like, this is what would happen if magic had been real. This is how it would go. And there's no other book I don't think I could really say that about. Like this one she does is so detailed that it feels true, like a textbook sometimes, in a positive way, not in a boring way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a brick, so textbook?
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of like a textbook. It's like,
well, so I said, like, if you're not gonna get, if you're having to convince somebody to read it, you'd be like, no, I know it sounds boring, and I know there's footnotes, and I know you don't like footnotes, and I know you don't like history, but like, no, if you don't like footnotes, long books, history, detailed history, like, you're not gonna like it. It's just not gonna work for you.
Well, I know that the thing that I really, and I think I put this in my like one line type review, is that it felt like a love letter to, even though it's set in the Regency era, it felt like it was a Victorian novel looking back at Regency era, and it felt like an homage and a love letter to that time. Because, like, you know, a lot of the classics have a bunch of footnotes that give you context and stuff like that. And I think that not only helps with the world building, but it kind of makes you feel academic in a way as you're reading it. At least it did for me. So,
well, also I feel like in I never really thought of it this way, but when you're saying it's like a love letter to this era, it's also, I feel like it's, I don't know, it's a love letter to both the pedant who's frustrated with anybody who just decides to be a fan of something, because that, like, Mr. Norrell is the guy who has devoted his life to this, and he's like, no, that is not how we do it. That is not what this is. You have to read 10,000 books on it first. You cannot just wing it. And Jonathan Strange is like, I just decided to make this my thing today. I've decided that this is my new hobby. And like, so it's like, you know, for anyone that's like a huge fan and has been a fan of something for like their whole life and they're an expert on it, versus somebody who's like, yeah, I bought a t-shirt of this after seeing one episode of the adaptation of it, and I'm a huge fan of it now. You're like, you're not allowed. As Mr. Norrell. So
I think it's one of also the rare books where I really love the main characters almost the most, because I'm usually a side character lover, but the interaction between Mr. Norrell, I always said Mr. Norrell, which I am going to try to fix. Mr. Norrell and Jonathan Strange is just excellent. Like what you just described is just, it's so delicious. And the whole arc they go through, since people haven't read it, I won't, you know, spoil that, but like that constant push and pull of like, I'm the new person who gets to be good at it, and I'm the old steady guy who does it all the right way. It's just really good.
The right way.
The right way. Well, yes, the right way. His right way. Well, we've all been there. We all think our way is the right way.
I mean, we've done the spiel. We can get into spoilers. It's totally fine. But yeah, like, and also they represent the two, like, there's a class structure going on. It's like early on, and one of the passages that I kind of marked, it's talking about like, oh, the lower class people who actually practice magic, they're not gentlemen. That's not gentlemen's magic. Mm-hmm. So there's a reality there with the social constructs and stuff like that, and it's kind of built into the world, which
also the way that even though this is a world in which we accept that magic did exist, it is a thing, but even so, when magic has come back, you still have the exact same people being like, no, like it's not taken any more seriously, or it's not any more believed, or people are just as I don't know what the word is, but unwilling to take that seriously, I guess.
Which feels realistic. I mean,
yeah.
I think the point at which I felt it was like so real and I was really like totally invested was when Jonathan Strange goes to France to help with the war efforts. I thought I wanted more of that, to be quite honest. That's
so interesting, because that's one of my favorite parts too. And I didn't know if I was weird for that. When he's helping on the shore with the ships and all that stuff is like one of the most memorable scenes for me.
Yeah.
Which the adaptation did a good job with, I will say.
I don't know.
Note to self, I need to go find this adaptation and watch it immediately.
Gotta figure out.
I feel like I don't think it's perfect, but the casting in the adaptation for, I guess, the like 5 characters that I cared the most about, being Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell, Childermass, Vinculus, and the thistle-haired man. Is that what it's called? Those 5, like the casting for them was perfect.
That's what I remember the most, because when I was reading the book after only one episode, I was imagining them in my head. They're
read the book first, but
I know.
But I mean,
I
honestly,
only watched an episode, Leanna, so like, I was gonna get off my back.
When I saw them, like the only thing that was like not how I would have imagined, I imagined Mr. Norrell to be sort of more frail and skinny and like kind of, you know, like he's a little more like stocky and sturdy looking, the actor, but otherwise he was perfect, and that would be the only thing that wasn't pretty much exactly how I imagined.
I'll be honest.
I think I watched it on Netflix, but that was a few years ago, so I'm not sure.
It could have changed.
Yeah.
I think I've seen like a few stills of the show, and I've actually stayed away from it because I didn't want to ruin my image of Doctor Strange, Jonathan Strange.
I do that all the time, Pete. Every time I'm like Doctor Strange and Mr. No, I'm like that's not right.
Not it. Because I imagine him as almost like an Emma like a Jane Austen male protagonist, Mr. Knightley type of deal. Like that, I imagine him as that level of, oh, he's young, suave, and attractive. And then I see the show, and I'm like, you look not as okay. You look kind of not attractive.
I thought he was attractive. I better go look.
Well,
at
he's
like
not utterly unfortunate looking, but he's not debonair and suave.
Yes.
And he's not going to be in Bridgerton.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've never watched
kinda
Bridgerton,
goofy.
obviously. I'm looking
kinda
at his
goofy.
face.
Yeah, I envisioned him more like a what's his name? Matthew something. He was in
McConaughey.
the show,
Please
but
not Matthew McConaughey.
no.
All right.
But I feel like
Now I want
he
a
had
version
a lot
with
of
Matthew
charisma.
McConaughey.
I feel like he had a lot of charisma though on the show. Like, I don't know. He's a good looking dude.
I mean, I guess if you wanted somebody who was suave and like an Errol Flynn, he is not that. But
okay, fine.
But going to your comment, Pete, about Jane Austen, like there's a lot of wit in there, and I feel like it's Austen-esque in her wit there.
Yeah, that's why I'm repping today.
Nice.
Just for this video.
I'm repping the magic side of things with my mug. So we've got it all together.
We've got it covered. The history and the magic.
I have milk duds. I don't know.
I have nothing. I have random paraphernalia.
What's interesting, I know we don't want to get into it yet, but what's interesting about the short story collection that takes place within the world is it focuses a lot on like the women's side of magic. So women using magic when it's supposed to be like a gentleman thing, which is very great. And it has that same level of historical. In fact, it starts with an opener from the author and where all of these pieces happen in time, basically compared to Jonathan Strange. So if you like Jonathan Strange, I feel like it's an excellent add-on.
Pete, I saw your face. Buddy read.
Are you excited about it, Pete?
I didn't actually realize that it was set in the same world.
Yes. So you get to see Jonathan Strange make an appearance in one of the stories. You get to see the Raven King make an appearance. It's a collection of stories as if they were historical. Like an author went out and found these accounts and collected them in a collection to explain more about the history of magic, particularly.
Yeah, like the footnotes.
Just like the footnotes, exactly. And there are footnotes in this, you know. So it was one of those things where I reread it. It's been a couple years, and I was like, oh yeah, this is why I love Jonathan Strange so much. Like you just read it, and you're like, oh yeah, that she's just so smart. Like Clark is so brilliant.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
speaking
so immersed again.
Speaking of ladies, one of the characters I really also liked is Jonathan Strange's wife.
I love that.
Yeah, and actually she's played by Charlotte Riley, which I thought was an excellent choice for her. But just the character in the book as well. Like I love her.
Yes.
And I feel like, I mean, I don't know if she's in that short story collection, but I was like already, you get a taste of what the ladies are like in this world through her. So like seeing more of that would be delightful.
Yeah, and she does make a small appearance, just as small as Jonathan Strange, but it's that same energy for sure that she gives to the book. She was one of my favorite parts of the book, I think. Just their relationship and just everything about it was really good.
Yeah, she didn't feel, she felt of the time, but at the same time kind of modern in a way. Like I don't know.
I feel like you can have an independent thinking woman in historical time period without making her be like, I should be voting already. And you're like, why are we talking about this right now?
Yeah, exactly.
She was appropriate for her time. She's a very strong woman, and you read her and you identify with her and you love her, but it's also not it's not trying to be something it's not. She knew the time period she was writing in. I mean,
it doesn't feel wildly anachronistic.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. If we're talking about endings, how did you guys feel about the ending between Jonathan Strange and his wife? That was the only thing in the book that was not super satisfying to me.
Having just recently finding out that there's supposed to be a sequel, It felt like a little bit of a, not necessarily cliffhanger, but it felt open-ended, which I don't mind. But I'm like, oh, I'm already immersed in this world and I don't want to leave. And you leave it open-ended like that. It makes me so heartsick. So I don't know. I felt like I didn't get closure there.
Yes.
But again, now knowing that there is allegedly going to be a sequel, it kind of makes sense. Assuming they follow the same narrative, but
was it the sequel would be about Childermass and Vinculus and their, I mean, at least chronologically, like it would have to happen pretty shortly thereafter. They're not like immortal elves or anything where this can happen 1,000 years later.
I mean, it's magic. You never know.
It just felt
There are
like
rules.
He tried so hard to get her back, and then it was like, bye. I was like, excuse you. I'm not prepared for this.
But it seemed kind of like, I don't know, poetic justice. That's probably the wrong phrase, but you know, it's not a happy ending. Like it's not all tied up in a bow. There has to be some sort of kind of sacrifice in a way.
A cost to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, but I sometimes just want things without cost. Is that okay? Like sometimes I just want it to fade into the sunset. Is that so much to ask sometimes?
Hillary, I thought you said you liked this book because it feels real. And real life isn't
bring
like that.
back to tell me that. I knew it. I knew someone was going to tell me that. You're right. I'm not saying you're right. Not right.
I think back. So I recently finished Assassin's Apprentice, and there's a foreword in the illustrated edition where Hobb tells us why she gives her characters so much pain. And she's like, yeah, I wrote an author when I was a child. And I was like, why did you change this character of mine? Why did you make him go through heartbreak? And the author that she wrote to was like, because people change and characters change, and this is how we grow. And thus, all the pain was given to us.
I mean, I think Hobb took it a little
really
far.
ran with that.
Yeah, she took it a little far, in my opinion.
She's like, pain, you say? All right, I'll write 16 books of pain.
I mean, I've only read 3 of them so far, and that was painful enough. I needed a break, so...
Yeah, I mean, I could see that critique, assuming you're still talking about Mrs. Strange. Like, I can see her being a little idealistic in her characterization, but at the same time, I felt like she was kind of like...
I think they set her up as like a counterpoint and a juxtaposition to Jonathan Strange. Like they're meant to sort of balance each other out. So then, while he gets to be the wild hippie, you know, he gets to be the manic pixie dream girl. He's the manic pixie dream girl, and she's like the steady, sensible. That's silly. We shouldn't do that.
Yeah,
in a relationship.
I think Pete, I messaged you when I read this, but one of the footnotes that I really, really liked was...
I was joking that she came as wooden because of what happens.
Whatever. It's
okay, that's what I thought. I thought he was making that joke, but then everyone took it seriously, and I didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry.
I got it, Andrew.
But one of the footnotes that I that kind of really was like, holy crap, these footnotes are actually really cool. Not that they weren't before, but when Mrs. Strange is talking about all the books and she's going to all these auctions to try and get books, and Norrell is buying them out from under her. And I'm like, oh man, like even with Jonathan Strange gone, like she's taking the initiative and like making sure that, you know, Norrell doesn't have like all the power, I guess, and like kind of.
She makes her a good partner to Jonathan Strange. Like that's what, like, I mean, yeah, that's a good like literary juxtaposition of 2 different character types, but it's also like practically speaking, they make a good partnership because they, you know, take care of different needs, and she's being practical again.
And she was supportive, and she was like, all right, do your magic stuff. Like, there you go.
Well, she's just relieved that he has an occupation. She's like, great, I'm supporting it. We're doing it.
Keep at it, honey.
Yeah, we're going to stick with it this time, okay?
You are not changing majors again. You are majoring in this now.
Well, that was kind of part of was part of his character, was that like he really didn't have an occupation, or he couldn't really stick with anything. So once he finally found this, I think they mentioned that either she thought or someone in his family thought that he was going to give it up after a couple of years, but nope, still going at it. So I thought that was pretty neat. There you go. Switching characters, though, never quite enough Childermass. And yeah.
Well, when we get the sequel, we'll get more Childermass.
I was trying to think, because she wrote that in 2004, and Piranesi came out in 2020, so that was 16 years. But maybe she was working a little bit on the sequel during that time, or else we've got a long wait.
All I know is that when it was announced that a new book by Susanna Clarke was coming out, I was like, finally the sequel! And then it was Piranesi. What is this?
This was published in 2006, so this only was like 2 years.
But I feel like the way you describe what it is, I would guess that, not that there was no extra work involved, but it was kind of stuff she had kind of worked on as part of the project of putting the footnotes together.
It might have even been stuff that like they asked her to take out of the book, for all we know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or that just didn't quite fit in. She did too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't remember where I saw it, but I read somewhere that in writing this, she kind of wrote it not linear from start to finish. She kind of wrote it in pieces, and that makes sense. But somehow, like it feels serialized. There you go. To go back to like the whole Victorian thing, it feels like it's one of those novels that was serialized, but it all comes together, and it makes sense. It doesn't feel disjointed or anything like that. Bots. There you go. Sorry. There we go.
But it does feel so not disjointed, but again, this is where when like if you're pitching it to somebody or telling them to read it, the kind of people who complain about like Joe Abercrombie's books feeling like you don't know where they're going and they're kind of all over the place and they're not like tightly plotted. This isn't tightly plotted. So if you're the kind of person that wants it to have like a very direct like cause and effect, here's the next thing, here's the quest, here's what we're doing, this is the point of it, here's the climax, like if you want that out of a book, that you're not happy just kind of like faffing around this world and going down rabbit holes and just kind of exploring, if you are going to be frustrated by that, then this is absolutely not the book for you.
Yeah, well that adds to the realism, because nobody's life is plotted. When you think of your last 10 years of your life, you're like, wow, that'd be pretty boring to read in a lot of ways. I've had some exciting moments and some not so exciting moments. And that's how it reads. Like you're really picturing how someone's life is going to go.
Although sometimes whoever's writing my life really gets the theme right in a particular episode where just everything is really circling back to it.
Sometimes, but not always, you know? We're not always tightly plotted. Yeah, Andrew and I agree. I think this is why it's one of my favorite slow burns, because the correct slow burns are long and slow, but never boring. There's a difference between slow and boring, I feel like. It's a fine line, but it's there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think the kind of serialized aspect of it, I think, and switching between perspectives and different storylines, I think that helps keep you engaged, and helps it keep from getting boring.
Well, also, I feel like it's part of what makes it feel more authentically of the time it's portraying, even though the time it's portraying doesn't exist because magic. But because books like Dickens wrote books sort of serially as well, and so just books from the time have a more meandering quality than modern books do. So I feel like that adds to the sort of historicity of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also her writing, like a good slow burn needs a strong author who is writing prose that's interesting, and like you guys said, like she's witty. So that also kept me interested, at least, you know, reading the witty characters.
Yeah.
I definitely got the wit a little bit more this time around, because like, I don't know, just starting on BookTube and stuff like that, like I read things differently. I read things more analytically, and I pay attention a little bit more when I'm reading versus just like zooming through everything like I've done historically. So like I feel like I paid attention to the wit and just the overall just vibe of the world a little bit more in this time, and enjoyed it a lot more.
It's funny you say that, because I'm the opposite. Because I feel like I read a lot more slowly because I was into, like, this was my commute book. So I was months of me reading Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell because I only read it on the bus. And so that was a lot of like time spent with it. Versus now I'm like, well, this is the book I have to read this month and I have until the end of the month to get it done and time is a wasting. So like no time to like marinate in this world. I have to finish it. So that's interesting that you have the opposite experience.
I mean, I definitely read more now because like I have a TBR and I read, I can't say I haven't read 6 books a month since I was probably like, 10 or 12. And that's when my brother and I were reading hundreds of books in the summer. But that was Boxcar Children and
Goosebumps.
Hardy Boys and all this other jazz. So I definitely read more, but it's just my brain has switched a bunch of things around. Like
So
just reading Infinite Jest, it's like I tried reading it last year when I first started BookTube, and then reading it now, I feel like I'm noticing more things.
Yeah. So I will say, in regards to that, if I had read this from start to finish, like no breaks, I probably wouldn't have liked it nearly as much as I do. Like I broke it up 1 volume a month essentially, and I read books in between it, and I feel like that helped me. It helped marinate with me, and stuff like that. So to each
it took me a solid. It took me a solid month to read it. I was reading it digitally at the time, and I did finish a couple other books in between though. So like I would read a chunk and then maybe get a faster book and read it. Because I do think I think it's a book you can read other things in between.
Yeah.
And I think it was like I read that book that month and like 2 other books or something, but it took me, or it might have taken me 2 months. I don't know. It did. It took me a while. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, because it's just like, you just gotta spend time with it a little bit.
Because it's so long and somewhat meandering, it feels a little bit like having that show that you're currently watching, but it's not the only show you're watching, and you don't maybe watch it every single night, but like you're gonna spend a few months like where you are consistently watching the show until you get to the end, and like you've spent all that time with those characters, but you don't have to like binge it.
Yes, yeah. I tell people that I'm like, it's just not really a book you do binge. It's not really something you sit down and you're just like, I'm gonna read this straight through. It's just not that kind of energy.
Well, I also feel like, like some people, I guess, just binge books, just period. But I feel like the kind of books that I would binge are the kind that are very like plot focused, where they're like, oh, I have to know what happens next because oh my god. But if it's like a very meandering character focused kind of book, then even if you're enjoying your time with it, it's not a thing that you feel like, oh, I must know what happens next. I cannot put it down. You're like, oh, I will enjoy this some more at some other time.
Yes, I agree. I like your TV show comparison. Like, yeah, you're watching other stuff at the same time. Doesn't mean you're not enjoying it.
Yeah. And then much like to carry on with that TV show comparison, if you watch an episode that ends on a cliffhanger and it wants you watching more, this has got it. Like specifically when Mrs. Strange dies. It's like, what? Holy crap. Yeah, so I was like,
sometimes that book got so frustrating because you knew too much about what was happening, and then other characters don't know what's happening, and you're just bringing it back all of a sudden. I remember how frustrated I'd be, and then that's the part where I really did read a lot at one time, because you're starting to be like, okay, I need people to understand what's happening now.
So with that though, to kind of go back to characters and stuff, there's this. I thought there was a really interesting correlation between Mrs. Strange and oh crap, what was her name? Lady Pole. Like not only with their situations, but like how they're dealing with it. But I feel like she kind of drops off at the end. Lady Pole does, and we kind of don't get a resolution with her, unless I'm misremembering. I don't know. Pete, correct me.
She becomes like at the very last few scenes, she becomes like oh yeah, she's actually able to, like because Segundus is like, oh, there's a rose on the mouth. She becomes the I'm looking for a word, but words are not coming to me. The not vestibule, that's a weird word. The way which that Segundus figures out kind of what's happening, that there's a curse, that there's something else going on here besides just a mad lady.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the end, right? For her.
I think so.
Yeah, she gets released, I think,
Yeah.
but we don't really follow her after she gets released.
Yeah.
Because she's eventually able to her and once she
Black.
leaves, she's able to talk about her and the king are able to talk about what was happening to them.
Stephen Black was an interesting character. I had no idea where they were going with that. Nice.
Happy to help.
Yeah, I
There you
did.
go.
Oh,
Bromance.
You're in
there
the
you
middle
go.
of writing, right,
Zach. Andrew said he has a man crush on you, so you guys can go
Who-
talk now in the comments.
Who doesn't though?
I personally have a womanly crush on him, not a
I
man
was gonna
crush.
say probably
but-
Hillary.
personally, but yeah, I love their juxtaposition. I agree with you, Pete. Like, the fairy was some of my favorite parts of the book, even though that wasn't the point of the book. Just the energy of Thistledown Hair Man, whatever we want to call him, was just like, I just loved the energy of that character. I was very into all of those sorts of scenes.
Well, just the fact that he's like, that's what he's called throughout, the man with the thistledown hair. Like, that's just gets to be his name, basically.
Yes.
Which was such an interesting choice, like not even giving us his technical name, which is so in line with like fairy lore and stuff like that of like, you know, you're not going to know their name because names have power and all this other jazz. And like, it was nice to see a lot of, some of it made up, like the Raven King, I don't think has any actual historical basis, but like seeing, could be
not
wrong.
the way it is in that, but like there is the Welsh king. There is like a legend about Glendower. So I think that's probably where that came from.
Okay, cool. I have more research to do anyway, so it's like one of those.
Like, I mean, again, what she wrote, like she invented, but like I think the idea of calling him the Raven King and like, yeah. Anyway, back to what you're saying.
It was so emo. It's great. Like, can I get like some tattoos of the Raven King? Yeah, let's go. But like seeing the basis of like so many myths that we have today in the book was so great. Just having like that vague background, like, oh, I recognize this. Oh, Merlin. He mentioned Merlin once.
Well, going back to kind of juxtapositions, I feel like that's my word of the day, but kind of thinking about the man with the thistledown hair, him having no name, and he's essentially his pairing is with Stephen Black, who he's like, I'm gonna find you your name, and then he's like, I have no name. Like, I thought that's I think that was a really good kind of pairing in a way, and exploration of like not only like what those two characters could be without having an identity in a weird way. Does that make sense?
Well, how much a name is your identity? Is it your identity? Do you need a name to have an identity?
Right.
And how Stephen Black was the man with no land, and then the man with thistledown hair was the man with all the land as well. Like that juxtaposition goes so deep in so many ways. It's so beautiful.
I do like how they imply that when Stephen Black he kind of goes into fairyland and takes over, that he's gonna completely overhaul and make it not so oppressive. And it's not for his whim, or the man with the thistledown hair's whim, I mean. So I thought that was neat.
Who do you guys think the man with the thistledown hair was?
I initially thought he was actually the Raven King. But I'm questioning my
I always thought he was as well, Evie.
Okay.
You are not alone in that. That's what I always thought. Is that not the thought other people had?
I don't remember what thoughts I had about that, so I'll get back to you on that.
I thought about this for a bit because I think this is such a great, interesting thought process to have. So my theory is that the man with the thistledown hair is the one who essentially kicked all the fairies and kicked the Raven King, somehow kicked them out of Earth, of the material plane, and that because he was using all the he was the only one that essentially was using the magic of land and air. He was the only one that was using the contracts of the land and air and water and sea and stuff like that. He was the one that worked to make people forget, it felt like to me, that magic was a thing. And he definitely has this undertone of why are you doing this, and why are you like just his rivalry with Jonathan, with Mr. Norrell and Jonathan Strange, but mostly with Mr. Norrell. It feels like it almost feels like he's mad at them for undoing something, but he never says it because he's not going to say it. He's never going to admit they're undoing something because he's too arrogant. He would never admit that he's failing at something. So Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, on the other hand, were, and the prophecy in general, I think, was a backdoor escape plan is not the word I'm looking for, but return plan, essentially, that the Raven King seeded everywhere for his eventual return. And that's just so fascinating that the Raven King was like, oh yeah, you can have this for now, but I'll take it back. And then just, I don't think that the man with the thistledown hair's image of the earth adjacent fairylands was how fairy was originally. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I see. So you think he changed it?
Yes.
I just like the way you described like these like built-in like time delayed return mechanisms. Like the Raven King left some Horcruxes. I'll come back.
So to get this clear, Pete, you think that he wasn't the Raven King, but maybe was trying to parade as if he was some sort of king of fairyland?
Yes.
But not the Raven King himself?
No, of course not.
He's the usurper.
Yes, I think he was the usurper.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, that would kind of fall in like the way that fairy is kind of messed up and not thriving. That would kind of go in line with that very fairy tale logic of like, well, you know, the white tree of Gondor only blossoms when you have the rightful king in place. Like that whole logic of like, well, it will flourish when it has the right person in power again.
Maybe I need to reread it. I'm glad at least Evie, I wasn't the only one who just thought they were the same person.
Maybe it'll be clarified in the sequel.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, the Raven King shows up for like 5 seconds at the very end. I'm pretty
I
sure.
blocked that out of my memory.
Pretty sure he did. Like for like at the with the tree, he was there.
Should I read? Was it the last page?
I mean, it's been some years, but I feel like I recall a thing like this occurring, but I could not tell you if that's true.
Was it the Raven's Eye? I just turned to a page that said a giant Raven's Eye appeared in the window.
Did it say never?
No. It was when Vinunculus and Childermass were at the tree. He appeared for a hot second.
Okay, I just don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
right.
Good. I'm not hallucinating. Patricia says he showed up at the end too.
Okay, so maybe I realized he wasn't the Raven King, but it's so short that I defaulted back to what I had thought the whole book.
I was gonna say, you spent so many days of your life thinking he was.
That I forgot the day when I was proved wrong. Yeah.
Branded onto your mind.
What do you guys think about the tower? Like the Tower of, what is it? Tower
of Darkness.
Night?
Yeah.
Darkness, yeah.
Absolute Darkness. They have some extra name for it, of course.
I feel like
the Tower of Gothness.
Yeah, that aspect kind of, I don't know. I'm still pondering over it. Not to steal your channel name, Pete, but I'm still thinking about it. I'm still like ruminating about it because I don't quite. I don't want to say that I don't get it, but like plot-wise, it makes sense, but it feels like kind of out of place at the same time. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Gonna be honest, I don't remember very much about it, so you guys can handle this part.
Well, I felt that the tower was one of the most open-ended things for me because it happens at the very end of the novel, and it just feels like I didn't, like you said, I felt like I didn't get it. I got it, But I also felt like it was definitely something that you'd be like, are we going to explore that in a sequel? Because like, it's kind of a send-off. I just don't know. Do we know a lot about it? Maybe Pete, you need to tell us that we do know a lot about it, but I don't remember knowing a lot about it at the time.
As far as I can tell, the Tower of Eternal Night, that's what it was. That's the extra emo name that they gave it.
Tower of Eternal Night.
Essentially, it was a petty thing that the man with the thistledown hair triggered. Like, as soon as Jonathan Strange was like, oh, I'm kind of mad now, which honestly, that was just great. Like, oh, in order to understand magic, I have to be mad. Like, that's... Makes
I also
perfect
just
sense.
like quick sidebar. I love when stories decide to play with the reason that Mad King George was mad. Like anytime they're like, someone's gonna mess with that and be like, well, there's a magical reason, or there's like some mystery reason, or he was pretending. Like I love when people mess with that. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. But like, as soon as Jonathan Strange was like, I know how to do magic and renew the contracts with the air and land, he was starting to do that, and Thistledown Hair was like, I'm mad at you, so I'm going to put you in eternal darkness. Like, it doesn't come out and say that he did that, but that was my impression where it came from.
Oh, that was definitely my impression of where it came from. I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely remember it being like, it was a direct reaction to Jonathan Strange. Like, it was a way to try to keep him down or whatever. But I just feel like, they go, because maybe don't Mr. Norrell and like Jonathan Strange, they go off together to go hang out there, right? Because they have to.
They have to be, yeah.
But I still feel like there's just so much more I want to know about it. Like, okay, but now, then what? Like, that's, I guess, my question. It's kind of, it is the tower. It makes sense in the novel, but then there's like and then what? I just feel like hanging over it a little bit.
So I take it there are no stories or no artifacts in Ladies of Grace Adieu.
No, nothing about that. No, it really, it's not going to really forward any plots from Jonathan Strange. It's more world building sort of stuff. Yeah.
I second the suggestion on Lin-Manuel. As soon as he's finished with adapting Kingkiller, he is welcome to work on Jonathan Strange.
Wait, is he trying to adapt Kingkiller? People want him to adapt Kingkiller?
He has the rights to adapt it to the stage, to the film, to the television, to video games, anything he wants.
Okay, well, we should adapt finished things because we saw how Game of Thrones season 8 went. I don't know. I didn't even watch it, and I don't know
if these plans have changed. But the plan was to do films for the books, a TV show prequel that's just about the Ademaru, where it's just like kind of canon adventures of like where they'd be going, and then a stage adaptation, and then possibly a game.
Well, this would be the perfect thing for Lynn, though. Because I read the Hamilton biography after watching Hamilton. I don't know if anyone else did.
Nerd alert.
I like to know the differences. I like to know. I wanted to know how much of it was historical. And if anyone doesn't want to read 1,200 pages, that play is crazy accurate. Just so everyone knows. There's like 3 really main differences, but they're not that big. But this is like the perfect thing. This is like just the right, like it's super long. People don't want to read it. It has a lot of history. He could write songs about this book. I didn't know I needed that.
We'd have to have some pretty clever staging for the magic.
Well, he just has to talk to the people who did Cursed Child. Did any of you guys go see Cursed Child?
No, but I want to.
I will say I hated the screenplay Cursed Child. I mean, I thought it was hot garbage. Like when you just read the screenplay. I don't know if anyone's even just read it. But
I was like, I pretty much hear everybody say the screenplay to read it as a book is garbage, but the play to see it is amazing.
It's incredible. But the biggest part is it's like they do legit magic. It's like a magic show, and it is incredible. I mean, yeah. I have a booktube. I'm sorry. Are we trying to pretend that people on booktube aren't nerds? Are you all trying to pretend you're not nerds?
Michael Nip is. I had an argument about why he's trying to convince me he's not a nerd. I'm like, no.
Okay, well, everyone's lying to themselves, and that's fine if you guys want to live in delusion. I personally don't live in delusion.
I'm actually super cool. For God's sake. I'm not a nerd like you.
You send me memes all day about books. You're a nerd. I'm not going to take any.
I just send that to you because I know you're a nerd and you're going to like that stuff.
But the magic was amazing. and they could do something similar, I think, with Jonathan Strange and be very cool. Like it was not cheesy at all in that place. That'd be a very cool blend. I want that now. Why are you guys putting that in my head? I want that really badly now. It'd be good.
Yeah,
Well,
I think it would be great.
I'm kind of flipping through because I could have swore, like, for whatever reason, I thought there were like
Song and
songs
dance?
or something in this, but maybe I'm thinking of just like the prophecies or something. But I could have swore there were like songs in here that could be used for like a stage musical or whatever. But anyways, sorry.
That was off. I'm sorry. That was all off topic. But I agree. Who suggested that, Andrew? It needs to happen. Yeah, I agree.
I will say, going back to King Killer, since this is my channel, how about adapt something that's good? So. I mean, I DNF'd it after like 150 pages, so I mean, it could have turned around at the end.
So
I don't know.
You didn't even get out of the inn then yet.
No, I think he was a kid at the time. I mean,
Heartless.
your joke is that it's always in the end. Never mind. It's past my bedtime, Pete. So
It's fine. I didn't get the wood joke earlier, so.
I didn't either. So we're good.
Wait, yeah, that's right. Hillary got that one.
Well, I got it and then wasn't confident enough that I remembered enough about the plot to be right, so I stayed silent. That's the...
Hey, so the only thing I can say is that we should be getting Doors of Stone soon since Michael Knipp read through Wise Man's Fear. So he has a history.
I was going to say, he read Doors
I
of
was
Stone.
like, you read Doors of Stone? How did Michael get that? What? Is Michael in the know and I didn't realize? Like he had...
Michael
Is he
Gaines-
secretly Patrick Rothfuss?
Yeah, under the beard.
That's
He's
why
just Michael Knipp.
time to finish Doors of Stone because he started a booktube channel.
Yeah, so I was going to say, Michael, we had known all along, be like, quit BookTube.
Stop filming
Booktube.
videos and singing songs and finish Doors of Stone.
3 kids. That too works.
Four?
Four kids. Oh my gosh. Sorry.
Who
Tessa's
has 4
the
kids?
entire-
Patrick Rothfuss has 4 kids? Or
No.
Michael Knipp has 4 kids?
Well, if
Michael
Michael
Knipp
Knipp
has
is
4
Patrick
kids.
Rothfuss, then yes.
Then yes.
And they're all less than 9, so like it
Oh, I
correlates.
didn't know that. You know, I'll have to text him about how hard it is to have a booktube with children. We can bond over that.
And try to
Um,
finish one of the best-selling trilogies of all time.
And
The
try to-
pressure.
Yeah.
the pressure of
And
that.
streaming on Twitch all the time.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love I mean, the BBC I thought was good. In fact, maybe we just all need to go watch it collectively since I think Leanna is the only one who finished it. Since I only watched it.
I'll go reread the book while you guys go watch the
We
adaptation.
can go watch the adaptation.
'Cause I need a refresher on the book.
If you listen to the book on like 7 times speed, maybe you can finish it in the same amount of time it
But,
takes us to
watching
finish
the adaptation is the same thing as reading the book, right? So you're right. I'll just go watch the adaptation again.
That sounds
No,
like
I don't. If I knew how to
sacrilege.
leave the chat and come back, I would, but I don't. So
You just have to want it.
So, just because we are close to an hour, and I don't want to keep you guys forever and a day, and this grandma needs to get to bed.
I thought we were going to stay for about an equivalent duration as like the book, like
so that people
proportionally.
can read while we're talking about it and finish.
Touche. That was a commitment that I did not sign up for. Sorry, guys. I'll just leave it on and then just like go to bed and then like.
And then we can start talking about the King Killer while you're gone.
Yay, there you go. But yeah, so hopefully we get the sequel later this year that allegedly is going to be because a new book is being released by Susanna Clark,
Wait, there is later this year?
allegedly called The Cistern.
Oh.
So we'll see.
I will also be Googling that because I did not hear that.
What that doesn't sound like is Childermass and Vinculus in a book.
It doesn't. It just doesn't sound like the
Who
right
knows?
title to follow up Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
I mean,
Maybe.
honestly, if it's going to be about 2 characters, you have to follow the same naming convention. Call it Childermass and Vinculus.
Or it needs at least like a textbook like title because Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell kind of rides that line of like being a historical title, you know?
I mean,
like,
it could be Vinculus and Mr. Childermass if we want to follow.
The Cistern by Susanna Clark.
So I will say that because I read Piranesi prior to reading this, the Piranesi references within Jonathan Strange, I was like, oh, hey, that's another book by Susanna Clark. Hey, all right, that's cool. So,
and if anyone on this chat hasn't read Piranesi, I am the official spokesperson for Piranesi because it's all I will talk about. So please go do yourselves all a favor and read Piranesi.
It's one of my top 10 books that I read last year. It's fantastic.
It was my number one. It's amazing. And it's 240 pages. That's practically a tenth of, reading this. Yeah. So this is what I'm looking at.
Is October 13th.
Someone said they don't think it'll be more Mr. Strange and Norrell.
I don't think it is. Unless it's like a short story about Vinculus and Childermass getting stuck inside a cistern, which would be interesting. It's the breakthrough he needed to translate the book.
This is what someone on Reddit said, so take it with a grain of salt. They said they can't find it now, but there was a sad interview where she talked about the physical difficulties of writing with her chronic pain condition and how writing a large book or sequel to Strange and Norrell is so hard as to be unlikely. Hence, she is working on shorter works like Piranesi, and they're speculating maybe the Cistern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that in other places besides Reddit as well, so I can confirm that there's more than one source for that.
Can she just dictate it?
Yeah, or just tell us some of the things.
Speech to text.
Or, you know what? Even an online serial. It's fine if it doesn't make as much sense. Just give us some chapters. We'll understand just here and there.
Well, she can publish it the way Dickens published, where you got, a bit at a time.
Yeah.
Even more faithful to the era, right?
Can you imagine Sanderson writing a Susanna Clark novel? That is so hilarious.
Again, because this is my channel. Matt, I'm gonna block you from this channel. You're never
Evie
gonna
and I can agree about this one.
I mean, my name is Bookborn, so I am a huge Sanderson fan. Clearly, he's my favorite author. I would die if Sanderson finished a Susanna Clark novel. Okay, we just have to understand that he's not the right person.
Would you die of joy or you die of disappointment?
I would die of sadness. I would die of this cannot happen. It is inappropriate. It is incorrect.
But actually, I keep shilling for this duology ever since I read it because it's kind of the most Jonathan Strange thing that I've read since Jonathan Strange, and that's Declaration of the Rights of Magicians.
Oh yeah, you keep saying that. I put
it takes place in the Napoleonic War era with magic, and it's retelling that era with magic. The characters in it are William Pitt, Wilberforce, Robespierre, Toussaint Louverture, but they are either encountering or wielders of magic, and it's the same kind of nitty detailed, they're talking about bills proposed in the House of Commons and debating on either side and about people's rights. Does the common man have a right to use magic or whatever? So it's reframing all the abolitionist movement and all the Enlightenment questions of human rights, but with magic. So good, so good.
I know it's on my list. I want to read it. You can.
But point being, if we were getting an author to finish Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, H.G. Perry can do it.
Yeah, and right? I think that's one thing. Clark has now become a person where I will just immediately buy whatever they publish. That's what happens to me. I've read all 3 of her works. They were all 5 stars. Maybe I gave Jonathan Strange a 4.5 or something. I don't remember. But I'm sorry, Leanna.
Kick her off the live.
She just becomes somebody that's okay, if you publish something, I'm going to read it. And that's when you have an author like that, it becomes very hard for someone else, I think, to finish their work. They usually have a very specific set of skills for what they are doing. And even though Piranesi and Jonathan Strange are so different, they still have this attention to detail, this mood setting that I think is very unique to Clark, the way she sets a mood.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like she has a very clear kind of thesis in mind of what she wants to execute, and she executes it beautifully in such different ways, and it still feels like her.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just always so impressed when an author can write 2 vastly different things, because I really feel like Piranesi and Jonathan Strange couldn't be more different, because you have one that's so technical and so historical and so like on, and then you have one that's very like soft and magic and very like ethereal, maybe, I don't know, like
it's very cerebral, I think.
yes,
I mean,
it's
well, they kind of
they're
both are in a way, but
that's more of like it's so much more metaphorical, I guess, than Jonathan Strange, which is very like more down to earth historical. And one is this tome, and then the other one is really short for an adult fantasy book. I don't know. I'm just always like, I just feel like there's such skill there that you can put your writing to two very different things.
And that's kind of how I feel about Neil Gaiman, because if you look at if you compare like American Gods to Ocean at the End of the Lane, and it's the same author with a very like, he has a distinct authorial voice and he has a distinct project in mind for both, but they could not be more different projects. Like, I mean, if anything, American Gods is his Jonathan Strange or Mr. Norrell, this meandering thing that goes off in little rabbit holes and is doing its own wild thing. And then you have something like Ocean at the End of the Lane that he accidentally wrote. And it's like barely a novel, barely long enough to be a novel. And it's like this little like bizarre, I don't know how to describe it if you haven't read it, but it's this like...
It's very good, but it's bizarre.
And part of the reason it's hard to describe is because I think he leaves it open to interpretation as to like what actually happened. And you can choose to interpret it as a magical story. Or not. But anyway.
Yeah, and I think it's just interesting because I think of other authors that I know a lot of us like Abercrombie or Sanderson. You know when you go into those books what you're going to get. Abercrombie and Sanderson, they are great at what they do if you like their books, but they do kind of what they do. And that's not a criticism. I mean, I love both of them. But so I just always think it's interesting when there's some of those authors like Gaiman or Clark who are able to do just very different things with their writing. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
I know it's not fantasy, but I can't help but mention Stephen Graham Jones does similar stuff. I know you didn't like The Last Final Girl, Leanna.
You told me I'm not allowed to read anything else he's written, so I will never know.
I know, because it would just hurt my heart if you don't like anything else.
But what if you're depriving me of actually my new favorite author because the only thing I didn't like was that, but I'll never know now.
But yeah, like he does similar things. Like all of his books are so completely different from one another, but they're so distinct in his authorial voice at the same time. It's just really good. And he does like horror, like really gory horror. So if anyone likes horror, Stephen Graham Jones, let me evangelize.
Is it like bloody horror, like graphic horror?
Some of the stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a really weak stomach, man. Really weak.
Yes.
My
That's somebody
addition to
else.
this would be Ray Bradbury for me, because I feel like some of the stuff that I read by him is really, really different. Whether you're looking at comparing Fahrenheit 451 to Something Wicked This Way Comes. Something Wicked This Way Comes is a straight up fantasy set in our world, whereas Fahrenheit 451 is this dystopian, crazy, oh my lord, what if this really happens type of story. Whereas like Something Wicked This Way Comes is this metaphorical coming of age story for kids and adults.
All right, I'm writing that down.
It's a vibe. It's another one that's just a vibe.
Something Wicked This Way Comes, it was so strange to me to read it because I liked the writing all of the time and I did not care about the story at all. But the whole time I was like, almost every line, I was like, this is something I'd want to highlight. But I was like, I could not care less about this story. So it was really weird because I was like, I think this is so good and I don't care about it.
Yeah, it's such a weird book and I love it. Like, I like weird things though. So,
well, to kind of circle it back, if we want more of Jonathan Strange type stuff, we have H.G. Perry, Declaration of the Rights of Magicians. Is that right? Did I get that right? And what was the other one? Oh crap, I can't remember. There was another one that we mentioned. We'll just watch this
just the sequel.
Oh, there you
not
go.
the sequel, but there you go. Just
short
same
stories.
things. I really loved it, so I'm just gonna pimp it and look at how great it looks too. It's such
It's a very
beautiful
pretty
cover.
book.
Yeah.
Well, I want like a
Check this
pretty
out.
edition. I mean, I have the hardcover, but there aren't any like very cool, like where book boxes. Where's
Where's
this?
the cool one here? And it also, this one did win a Hugo, which I hadn't realized until I was researching the Hugos. And I'm pretty sure it did. I was researching and it had won the Hugo, which I didn't realize. And that just made me feel happy because I think this is the kind of book that you want to reward with that sort of thing because it's a departure. It's something new. It's something different. Yeah, anyway.
All right. On that note, on that very positive note, thank you everyone in chat for joining us. Thank you, Leanna. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Pete, for joining me for this.
Thanks for having us.
Surprisingly, not that chaotic discussion. It lasted 45 minutes longer than I thought it was going to. So, yeah. Maybe we can reconvene and talk about either the adaptations or Ladies of Grace Adieu. No pressure. Pete, buddy read.
Well, I'll just say this one I read very quickly. This is like, it's short and they're short stories, which makes it even like, this isn't going to be the,
well, it's even more so something you can dip into. If it's short stories, you'd be like, oh, I'll read one at a time as I care to.
Between other books.
I may do that then.
Well, you can watch an episode of the adaptation, then read a short story. Then watch an episode of the adaptation, then read a short story.
Fully
like
immersive.
So many ideas.
Experience.
We're giving you guys so many options on how to enjoy.
Oh.
I have to read it first.
Every day on my channel and in my Instagram. You want to talk about Piranesi, you just drop me a line anytime.
I'm totally down for that. Pete.
Yeah,
also, another action item.
Change my entire
I read
2021.
Piranesi in a single day. And I have children.
It is also
so not
very
short. I can usually do. I sat down, I started that book and literally could not put it down. And finished it on a single Friday.
We're talking about the audiobook for Johnson Strange and Mr. Norrell. I have not heard that, but the audiobook for Piranesi is read by Chiwetel Ejiofor, which is...
He's a fantastic actor, so...
He's got a great speaking voice.
All right, well, there are ideas. No pressure, guys. But again, thank you everyone in the chat. Thank you everyone here. If you're subscribed to me, you guys are already subscribed to these guys, but I'm pretty sure I put everybody's information down in the description. If not, I will do that as soon as I hop off here. But again, thank you so much, guys. Have a good night, and we will see you later.